This week, as the AFC West gets a little tougher on Friday night, as the Las Vegas Raiders add a veteran quarterback via trade with Seattle. Geno Smith heads south in exchange for a third-round pick. Obviously, the headline is that he reunites with Pete Carroll, with whom his sort of career renaissance took place when they were together in Seattle. The Raiders haven't gotten much production from the quarterback position since Derek Carr moved on a couple of seasons ago. They've been bottom 5 in total QBR, touchdown to interception ratio, 20-yard completions. They remain in search of their first AFC West title, amazingly enough, since 2002. Adam Schefter joins me now. Adam, I'm sitting here on a Friday night, minding my own business, having dinner with the fam. All of a sudden, the phone starts going goofy because you're out there breaking news. They say, we got to talk to Adam about Geno Smith. I said, what happened to Geno Smith? Oh, he plays for the Raiders. How'd that happen? So what do you got for me here? How'd this come together?
Well, Scott, let's give you the backstory of how this did come together. Essentially, the Seahawks had sat down to try to do an extension with Geno Smith, who had 1 year remaining on his contract. They were not able to make any progress towards a new deal. And I think Geno wasn't particularly thrilled with the way contract talks had went. And when they stalled and went backwards, lo and behold, his former head coach, Pete Carroll, comes out of the woodworks from Las Vegas and approaches Seattle about trying to get a trade done for Geno Smith. And after recognizing that they were not going to be able to bridge their differences with Geno Smith on a new contract, the Seahawks ultimately opted to trade a 35-year-old two-time Pro Bowl quarterback for a third-round draft pick. If Geno Smith liked what Seattle was offering, if the two sides were able to bridge their differences, this trade would not have happened. Geno Smith would be in Seattle. That was their ultimately leading choice to be the starting quarterback, but we had a quarterback who wasn't happy with the progression of these contract talks that ultimately led with him being traded to the Las Vegas Raiders.
There's the football piece. I mean, they had an O-line issues that were obvious last year, but it's interesting. He was trying to get it done there, but it doesn't happen. And I think, Adam, we all understand that there's the Pete Carroll connection, but because Brady's got this involvement with the Raiders, we look at that lens and wonder, is there involvement from his perspective, or is that just completely irrelevant to this conversation because it's a Pete Carroll, Geno Smith thing?
Well, I think Tom Brady ultimately has to sign off on this, Scott, and be on board with the acquisition of Geno Smith. But let's be honest here. When Pete Carroll becomes the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, Pete Carroll is the one driving the acquisition of Geno Smith. You need the support of Tom Brady, who has to sign off on it. But if the Las Vegas Raiders had hired Ben Johnson or Kellen Moore or Liam Cohn as their head coach, I feel quite confident in saying that Geno Smith would not be the quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders today, that he would still be in Seattle. But because of the connections in Seattle between Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, with the Raiders needing a quarterback, the Raiders opted to fill their opening with a trade for Geno Smith, which, of course, has all types of ramifications on the rest of the quarterback carousel.
Right, notably Seattle, who now needs one, right? There's company in that room of people looking around saying, who's our guy? Now Seattle's in that mix. Is there a sense of what that market looks like, just as a final thought, Adam?
Well, yeah, Scott, the first guy you're looking at is Sam Darnold.
Of course.
The Seahawks' new offensive coordinator is Clint Kubiak. Who did Clint Kubiak work with in San Francisco? Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is out there. I think Pittsburgh is expected to have interest. The Giants are expected to have interest. But lo and behold, Seattle suddenly has an opening, and they cleared out Geno Smith's salary, and they have a coach that used to work with Sam Darnold. So clearly, Seattle is going to make a run here at Sam Darnold in the coming days to see if they can convince him to become a Seattle Seahawk.
There really is no offseason in this league. It's remarkable. There's been all kinds of news this week, and then we get free agency next week, Adam. You're a busy man. I appreciate you making some time on a Friday evening.
Got a stunner from the NFL. The Seahawks have traded their starting quarterback, Geno Smith, to the Raiders for a third-round pick in April's draft. Geno reunited with his old coach, Pete Carroll, there in Vegas. The Seahawks dealing a highly productive quarterback who's made the Pro Bowl twice in the last 3 years. What is their thinking? We'll get into that in a second. But Geno has really been at his best when playing for Pete Carroll. His QBR up 13 points compared to the rest of his career, while he threw for more touchdowns in 13 fewer games than he has under all the other coaches in his career combined. And we bring in our NFL insider, Jeremy Fowler. So, Jeremy, let's take this from both sides. For the Raiders, it's a franchise-altering move. They give up a third-rounder for a 34-year-old starting quarterback. Give us their thinking here and why they went this route instead of maybe trying to find a quarterback through the draft or free agency.
David, from what I've gathered, the Raiders simply didn't love the free agency class that was available here. They know Geno Smith. Pete Carroll wants to win now. This is not a rebuilding situation. They hired Carroll so he can get this done immediately. So he needed somebody he's comfortable with. He's very comfortable with Geno Smith from their Seattle days. They felt like they had a good kinship. Pete Carroll feels like he can win with them. And also there's the contractual piece here. Geno Smith has a year left on his deal. He wants a new contract. He had some preliminary talks, I'm told, with Seattle, but it didn't shake out. It didn't look like that was headed in the direction that Smith wanted. So I do believe that he was a factor here in wanting to go elsewhere to somebody who will pay him. And I'm told that they are going to be working on a long-term deal between Smith and the Raiders here soon.
Pete Carroll said, we are trying to take it as far as we can, as soon as we possibly can. Always a certain urgency when you're 73 years old, I guess. As for the Seahawks, they certainly now need a quarterback. You have to figure they have another move up their sleeve. What can you tell us about that, Jeremy?
Well, Seattle has a blank canvas here. Whichever direction they want to go is pretty wide open. So Kirk Cousins is a natural fit. Just asking some people around the league, they believe that new offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak has the familiarity with Cousins, worked with them together in Minnesota. However, the Falcons have been very clear, publicly and privately, that they are not dealing Kirk Cousins right now. So that makes them pivot to potentially Sam Darnold, similar offense to what he ran in Minnesota. Could be some familiarity there. I do believe that there's some love in the Seattle building for both Cousins and Darnold. After that, it's probably not looking like Russell Wilson. Aaron Rodgers doesn't seem like the kind of experiment that head coach Mike Macdonald wants to build his culture around. So you're left with some scarcity of options. Maybe it's a Daniel Jones type, but it looks like it will be a bridge here. Seattle clearly is resetting their roster a little bit between Geno Smith, potentially trading DK Metcalf. So they might just need a one-year rental to build something bigger.
Yeah, it's really been a lot of upheaval in Seattle. Tyler Lockett, Draymond Jones released. So a lot going on there. Now Geno shipping off to Vegas. Jeremy staying up late with us on this Friday night.
It's happening pretty quick. Free agency, crazy trades. Geno Smith traded to Pete Carroll and the Las Vegas Raiders. It took a second for me to digest this. Trying to understand and look at it from every angle and understand the logic in this. I know that there's a piece of the Seattle Seahawks fan base that feels like, oh, we can do so much better than Geno. No, I don't think you can. But especially in this landscape. Now, if you said, hey, we have an opportunity to get one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the National Football League, and we got to get rid of Geno to get the draft pick to go get them, I would be able to understand. I'd be able to get behind that and be able to like say, let's go. But the things I'm seeing, first off, I'm seeing the Minnesota Vikings want to make things work with Sam Darnold. So it seems like they want him back. They want to build around him. That's been talked about. That's been talked about internally. It's out there. And